from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
USDA may get another familiar face. Plus, farmers and chem companies are adjusting to new dicamba rules, and agribusiness saddle up with soybeans.
We make the bean crop in August. We don't make it in July.
Machinery Pete says the older used tractor market is still strong, and land values are one thing. What do you think this dirt from the moon is worth?
Ag Day, brought to you by the dependable, longest-lasting Chevy Silverado.
Good morning, I'm Clint Griffiths. 3 months after taking office, Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue tapping his second in command, and it has soybean growers looking forward to the next 4 years. The Trump administration naming current American Soybean Association CEO Stephen Censky as a Deputy Secretary of Agriculture. The number 2 spot oversees day-to-day tasks there at USDA. This is the first of several USDA cabinet spots still not filled. If confirmed, Censky will leave his ASA post after serving 21 years as CEO. In a prepared statement, current ASA President Ron Moore says nobody in agriculture is better equipped to assist Secretary Perdue in meeting the needs of farmers with practical solutions than Steve. He is a perfect fit for this role, and we give him our strongest endorsement. Farm Journal Washington correspondent Jim Wiesmeyer telling Ag Day Censky is a strong pick.
Quickly in Congress never happens, but he will not have a problem whatsoever. He's one of their own in the Senate, and he'll have wide bipartisan position. And since he left his Republican-oriented jobs, he was in 2 administrations in different capacities. Again, he's well respected, and he'll get a bipartisan approval in the Senate. Hopefully, it'll be sooner rather than later.
Wiesmeyer telling Ag Day it's possible Censky could receive approval before the Senate leaves for break mid-August. He also says that it's still widely expected that current Iowa Ag Secretary Bill Northey will be tapped for a newly created undersecretary position by Ag Secretary Perdue. Now, Ag Secretary Perdue says he is extremely pleased with the Censky nomination. He believes that Censky will bring enthusiasm and a dedication to this country, which will be a great asset to USDA's customers. Perdue says he hopes the Senate Ag Committee will take up the nomination in short order, but there's been no word on a hearing date from that committee. As chief executive of ASA, Censky is in charge of managing the organization's legislative, trade policy, international market development, communications, and leadership development programs. In the number 2 role at USDA, trade will be a major focus for Censky, and it's a topic in which he's very familiar. We caught up with him during Commodity Classic this year, and he says more than 60% of the U.S. soybean crop is shipped overseas, with China and Mexico the top 2 markets.
We have been active in trying to communicate with the Trump administration, as well as with members of Congress, how important that trade is, and really with the message that, negotiate very prudently and move very prudently here, because U.S. agriculture and U.S. farmers and ranchers have benefited from these trade agreements, and we need to make sure that, as for instance, if NAFTA is renegotiated, that we don't blow the significant gains and benefits that U.S. farmers and ranchers have with the trade to Mexico.
Prior to joining ASA in 1996, he was already familiar to the inner workings of Capitol Hill. According to his ASA biography, Censky was a legislative assistant for agricultural and transportation matters to Senator Jim Abner of South Dakota during the mid-1980s. He would go on to serve President Reagan and the first President Bush at USDA. Censky worked up to become the administrator for the Foreign Ag Service at the Ag Department, where he focused on trade negotiations and exports. Those topics still a big focus of his current job at the Soybean Association. Now, for many of you, it's county fair time. This may serve as a reminder about biosecurity for livestock. The Ohio Department of Agriculture investigating a case of H3N2 swine flu at the Clinton County Fair. A hog testing positive on Wednesday. The following day, there were several more. The state veterinarian quarantined the barn. Out of precaution, 285 hogs were put down. A spokesman for the Ohio Ag Department says 200 of those hogs were already scheduled to be slaughtered. As the dicamba debate heats up, more states imposing new restrictions, but Monsanto Company says they're confident they can help work through the issues so farmers have access to the technology again next year. As Agday first reported Friday, Missouri farmers once again able to use a new formulation of dicamba, but must follow new restrictions, including lower wind speeds and time of application. Arkansas is banning dicamba for the rest of this year, but just to the east, Georgia has no reported cases of drift. Weed specialists say several factors are causing dicamba injury, including drift and products physically moving. Monsanto Chief Technology Officer Rob Fraley telling Agday boots are on the ground exploring all possible issues, and the company is already focused on next year.
So we're looking at drift retardant agents and nozzles and clean out procedures for growers. We're going to be working with states to make sure that the off-label products aren't used, and that's going to be key. And then we're going to look at what we can do to help growers be more aware of temperature conditions and inversions. So lots to do, but I'm absolutely convinced that these are going to be great tools and they're going to be important for farmers.
Fraley reminding growers it's essential to follow the label this year. Mike Hoffman joining us this morning for a look at crops across the country as today's crop comments. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning to you, Clinton. Matt Nelson over in Burt County, Nebraska is done with his second hay cutting. Matt says his hay crop looks nice due to limited rain. He says corn is a little behind normal, but it's starting to tassel. USDA will release a new crop progress report this afternoon. And Steve Rathy sending us a picture of new solar panels that he put up at his hog site in eastern Iowa. He says return on investment is good right now for him on solar. And taking a look at the estimated rain last week, you can see some pockets had a lot of it, others not so much. We'll tell you who gets it and who doesn't this coming week with my forecast, but first here are some hometown temps.
Visit farmjournalpro.com. Trusted analysis, professional insight. farmjournalpro.com.
We'll talk about that wild soybean market coming up after the break, plus Machinery Pete is here.
Stay tuned, folks. Coming up, I'll tell you about a Case IH 7140 tractor that sold last week in Saskatchewan.
And how much would you pay for some dust? What if that dust traveled 250,000 miles to get here? We'll explain later on In the Country.
Are you a game changer? Know someone who is? Chevron is searching for those people that have made an impact on the industry. Share your nominee at chevrondello.com/gamechangers. Dello, let's go further.
Chinese grain buyers announcing plans to purchase more than $5 billion worth of American soybeans last week. China imported a little more than 3 billion bushels of soybeans in 2016, and buyers expect to hit 3.3 billion bushels next year. Well, let's see what that did to markets at the CME in Chicago on Friday.
Hi, corn and wheat settled higher on Friday, and wheat settled mixed to mostly a little bit lower, although Minneapolis wheat did settle higher as well. It's been a very wild week in Chicago, and I think a lot of the traders were just content to kind of kick things under the table and go home. So the volumes were decidedly less today than we have seen otherwise during the course of the week. And I think it was more of a consolidative trade than anything else. Overall, the weather continues to remain the main feature here. The weather forecast during the day on Friday calling for warmer temperatures, hot weather, and dry conditions for the western corn belt to stick around, perhaps longer than some of the previous forecasts had indicated, and that also caused a little bit of the buying. Live cattle and feeder cattle being supported by some better than expected prices being paid in the auction markets here this week. August now at or maybe even just above what the cash market was here during most of the week, and that's a pretty good sign, especially since the beef market has been struggling once again here this week. Thanks very much. This is Jack Skoll. I'm Vice President of Price Futures Group here on the CME Group floor with some comments for the markets.
Soybeans seeing plenty of action last week, both up and down. Tyne Morgan caught up with Mark Gold for perspective in today's analysis. Tyne?
Here now with Mark Gold of Top Third. Mark, when we look at this soybean crop, I mean, I know we've been talking about corn on the show and it's really variable. It's so early to tell on soybeans, but it just doesn't look like maybe some of the stand counts and things are there that we had last year.
Well, first of all, North Dakota and South Dakota, we raise 14% of our beans in those two states. We know how bad the weather has been. We don't see it getting a whole lot better, and we have reduced yields significantly in just those two states. And that makes a difference because it's 14% of our total bean crop. So nationally, the question is, can we offset it in the better states, Illinois, perhaps Iowa, Missouri? Maybe we can, but I don't see anything near trend line yield. I believe we're going to be moving it lower over time. But let's face it, we make the bean crop in August. We don't make it in July. We can have a hot, dry July, and beans can look terrible in July. If we get the rains in August, we'll fill the pods. So it's still yet to be determined, but the longer range forecasts still look hot and dry to me.
Yeah, and when we look at where these beans are planted and you know how good the yields are in those areas, at the same time we did plant more beans this year. Does that offset it at all?
Well, sure, it'll offset it, but now if we lose 2 or 3 bushels on 90 million acres of beans, we're talking about significant reductions in that carryout. And $10 beans aren't justified if you've got a 400 and 500 million carryout. But if we got a 250 carryout, now we can be talking about higher prices.
$10, $11, $12?
I think $11 to $12 could be an easy target out here.
But at $11 and $12, are those prices enticing to some of our buyers, you know, like South America, China? Does that kind of push anyone away from us?
I don't think so. You know, we've got the dollar on a little bit of a break here down to 95, 96 cents. I think that'll help. The fact of the matter is they might need the beans in the short run, and we're going to be the game in town for a while, and let them come for the beans. The key will be, because we still do have big worldwide carryouts, we need to sell those beans if we do get the rally. All
right, Mark Gold, thank you so much. Stay with us. We'll be back with more Ag Day in just a moment.
For a special report on the grain markets, call toll-free at 877-TT-HEDGE. That's 877-884-3343. Get the roots your crops need by getting Radiate first. Visit lovelandproducts.com/radiate. See your CPS dealer today.
Welcome back to Ag Day on this Monday morning with meteorologist Mike Hoffman, checking out rainfall over the past week or so. And boy, you can see right there in the middle of the eastern corn belt getting plenty of rain.
And some of it too much.
Yes,
other
that's
areas that could use it, not getting much at all. But that is pretty typical when you're talking about summer, especially when you have thunderstorm complexes like hit many areas from Iowa across Illinois, Indiana into Ohio. And then it missed other areas, unfortunately, places like the Dakotas, eastern Montana, that are in the severe drought in much of that area, not getting much, if any, rain. Much of Texas, not a whole lot, but you can see some pockets did get some rain through the Southland, some decent amounts. But the heaviest amounts really right through the heart of the Corn Belt. Not everywhere, though. You can see some places like south central Illinois didn't get much at all, as multiple complexes went through Chicago into southwestern Michigan. Central Indiana got a lot, northern Missouri got a lot, so it just kind of depended on exactly where you lived. And that'll, of course, be the case as we head through this week as well. Jet stream showing the trough and cooler weather over the northeast, eastern Great Lakes. The ridge has moved eastward into the north central plains for at least a little while as the trough tries to dig in out west. But here's been the pattern all summer long. The ridge goes back to the west as we head into Wednesday. That still means hot for most of the western plains, but kind of a coolish pattern for the northern Great Lakes into New England. And of course, trying to turn cooler a little bit in the far northwest. As we head through the end of the week and into the weekend, the trough digs a little bit more, eastern Great Lakes in the northeast. Ridge holds over the western plains, eastern portions of the Rockies. And as we head through the weekend and into next week, looks like a little bit more energy trying to dig into the Great Lakes. So it's going to be back and forth in the northern tier of states, more than likely. Great Lakes into New England as far as temperatures go, but it's going to remain quite hot through the southeast and most of the west. In fact, here's my forecast for temperatures this week. And you can see I'm going above normal for most of the plain states, near normal, but it's always hot. Most of Texas, above normal also through the southeast, Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley, Mid-Atlantic. Below normal then for northern New England with that back and forth area kind of through the Great Lakes region. I'm also going below normal for the southwest, and that's mainly because I'm expecting you to be above normal as far as rainfall goes. And so it will be hot and humid in those areas, but you can see it'll get wet at times as well. Below normal then, the southern plains into the southeast. I'm going above normal for a strip right through there where those fronts kind of go back and forth. and unfortunately North Dakota, Montana, and much of the west below normal as well. 30-day outlook for temperatures below normal in New England, otherwise above normal mid-Atlantic, most of the plains, most of the west, near normal for that intermountain region because of the above normal amounts of afternoon rainfall, below normal northern plains and the west over the next 30 days, and from Louisiana to mid-Atlantic into the Great Lakes looks to be above normal. That's a look across the country. Now here are some local forecasts. First of all, Denver, Colorado, rather hot today. An afternoon thunderstorm in some spots, high of 93. Indianapolis, Indiana, a good deal of sunshine and pleasant, high of 83. And finally, Baltimore, Maryland, a mixture of sunshine and clouds, maybe an afternoon storm in spots, high around 91 degrees.
Up next, Machinery Pete joins us to talk tractors trends from recent auctions, and later, this bag of dirt is expected to bring big bucks at auction. We'll tell you why, coming up on In the Country.
Ag Day is powered by Ram Trucks, America's longest-lasting pickups. Machinery Pete is brought to you by John Deere. Where can you find the most comprehensive inventory of John Deere certified pre-owned tractors, combines, and sprayers? MachineFinder.com. Sometimes the best new addition to your fleet isn't new.
Machinery Pete is still spending plenty of time at auction, and today he's sharing his perspective on price trends for used 20 to 30-year-old tractors. Craig?
Well, one trend I've seen really take shape here the last couple of months, folks. If we talk tractors 20 to 30 plus years old in really nice condition with low hours, boy, I tell you what, the buyer demand on these things is really ratcheting up. Now, there was a sale last Thursday up in eastern Saskatchewan, good proof of this, where this 1992 Case H 7140 had 4,327 hours on it, sold for 82,000 Canadian. Now, when we do the math and convert that into US dollars, it comes out to $63,468. That makes that the 8th highest auction price I've ever seen on a 7140. And actually, just a couple months ago, on an April 1st farm auction in southeast Minnesota, right by me, this 1990 model 7140 with 2,972 hours on it sold for $71,000. That made that the 2nd highest auction price ever on a 7140. Now, if we stay in this same 200 horsepower range but change colors, here's a picture of a 1984 John Deere 4850. This thing had 3,027 hours on it and sold last week on a farm auction in Northwest Illinois, July 7th. Brought $61,500. Now, how high is that? Folks, the previous high I'd ever seen on a 4850 was $53,000 11 years ago. So again, the really nice ones, low hours, little age on it, tremendous buyer interest out there.
All right, thanks, Pete. Now, if you think land prices are expensive in your part of the country, wait until you see what this dirt is selling for. Detail after the break.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota's BV 4580 round baler. Learn more at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
What's the dirt in your field worth? Of course, that depends on where it's located, but it's not uncommon to see some of the best corn-growing farmland in Iowa go for more than $10,000 an acre. But that's chicken feed compared to some dust from the moon, and not just any moon dust, but lunar samples from the first man to land on the moon. The bag Neil Armstrong used to collect moon dust will be auctioned off this week to celebrate the 48th anniversary of the first landing on July 20th, 1969. Now, other items linked to space travel will also be sold at Sotheby's of New York, but with an estimated value of $2 to $4 million, the moon dust is the star of the sale.
It is an outer decontamination bag, so it was used to protect those samples from potential contamination from us on planet Earth, but also to protect the spacecraft and planet Earth from any potential contamination of lunar pathogens.
Hatton says the bag was misidentified and nearly landed in the trash. It was rediscovered during an auction of forfeited assets conducted by the U.S. Marshal Service. After a legal tussle, a federal judge granted the current holder full ownership. Now, in addition to the lunar bag, an actual flight plan used during Apollo 13, think of that Tom Hanks movie, is also up for sale. Pretty neat stuff. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. Start your day with us. For Tyne Morgan, Mike Hoffman, and all of us here at Ag Day, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day in farm country.
Ag Day is powered by Ram Trucks, America's longest lasting pickups.